What up, y'all? So I decided today I want to do a reaction to personality hacker video. This video is called Sensing and Intuition Misreads. Stop second guessing your type, episode 627 from the personality hacker. Now they do have a podcast as well. From what I don't know exactly what the origin of their podcast is, but I know that I think I've seen them on Spotify and I've seen them on SoundCloud. So like, that's just where I watch them personally. They may have another main avenue. I don't know if their main avenue is YouTube. It could be just be, I don't know. But I'm gonna tell you right now, probably the most legit YouTube channel currently. When you talking about Myers-Briggs, um, I'm telling you, they are the most legit. A lot of these channels out here are not really that legit, or like I say, a lot of the channels have some good things they say, but then there's also some things they do to just to try to um, appease the intuitive crowd too much. But with personality hacker, they are balanced. They're coming from the core raw information. They are legit. I said I've been into it for over 15 years. I say, well, 2008. Do the math. You know what I'm saying? I don't feel like doing the math right now, but I've been in it since 2008. So they've been into it much longer than that. I'll tell you that right now. They've been into it even longer than I have. They've been doing this for a minute, so everything they say is 100% legit. Well, I can't say I agree with everything they say. I agree with 99% of what they say, though. It's very, very rare that they say something that I kind of disagree with. But when you're talking about the facts, they are legit. You know what I'm saying? They deserve to get more views than they do. But it's hard when you don't tell people exactly what they want to hear. Now, I'll tell you pretty much most of the things they say line up with the things I've been trying to tell y'all for the longest. And that's not even me like getting my information from them necessarily. It's just like we are both lining up. Like personality hacker, it just lines up with what I say because we're both, well, all three of us, because there's, um, Joe Mark Wood and Antonio Dodge. So all three of us, it lines up because we're all operating from the correct framework. You know what I'm saying? In-depth knowledge of cognitive functions. I watch them and I learn things a lot too because, of course, like I said, they've been doing it much longer than I have. So I can learn a lot of things too. But you can learn from anybody. It doesn't matter. Like even if somebody doesn't have as much experience as me, I can learn from them, something from them possibly. But yeah, man, like if y'all are wondering, like these people are, you can't question these people's credibility. I'm going to tell you right now, they have everything they need to prove their credibility. That's just in case you were questioning my credibility, because I don't go over the top to try to prove my credibility like that. I like look at this, and I'll tell y'all things here and there, but like I'm not gonna go over the top. I'm just gonna tell it like it is and leave it at that, and take it or leave it type of thing. But yeah, like the fact that my things line up heavily with what they say most of the time shows you I'm not lying. I've been telling it like it is. But they are a lot more diplomatic and about it. They have a lot more patience to be diplomatic about it. I'm just not that diplomatic. I just tell it like it is. I'm just blunt. That's the main difference. I'm very blunt. I don't really care as much how you gonna feel about it. They are a lot smarter and diplomatic about it. Very professional. You know what I'm saying about it. So, thinking I'm gonna put my light on just a second. But let's go ahead and get started, man. I gave my introduction. If y'all want to go check them out, just look up Personality Hacker, or I'm just gonna put the link down there for y'all to go check out this video. But anyways, let's get to it. Without further ado.
Being the one that keeps getting described and other.
Hey, welcome back to the Personality Hacker Podcast. My name is Joe Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge. In the last couple episodes, we've been discussing why it can be really difficult to find your best fit type, one's best fit type.
Yeah.
A couple episodes ago, we talked about 13 different reasons why it's difficult based on more just human things, right?
Yeah.
Like just the proclivities that we have as people. Things like, I have failings and I don't want to see them, and finding my best fit type might point them out to me. Or that, like I see myself a little bit in everything. So it's really hard for me to narrow it down to just one.
Or I want to be a type.
That's very common. When you talk about, especially introverted feeling doms, like INFPs, ISFPs, they kind of always say, when I introduce type to them, they often will say, I see myself in all of them. Which that's a misconception. It's not like you're going to not see yourself in all of them, because we're all using all of 8 cognitive functions technically. So yeah, of course. But like, it's more about the reason why they say best fit type is because it is about which fits you best out of the 16. Not like, oh, I relate to all of them, so therefore I don't, I'm all the types. No, it's like, which one's the best fit out of all 16. No matter what you say, you're always going to be able to find one that fits better than the other. Therefore, you will always find one that fits best out of the 16. Even if you were talking about in the smallest increment possible, something is going to be up here while the rest is going to be down here. So,
Or I want to be a certain type. That
Yeah.
sounds really cool. Or I want the fresh feeling of rediscovering my type all over again, or whatever it is. That episode talked about sort of just human things, humaning, and why it might be difficult to find our best fit type based on that. And then the last episode, we discussed why it can be difficult to find your type if you have sensing preferences, because, and you'll have to hear the whole episode, but basically intuition is something that.
All right, now back to the main video.
What I love about the way we're going to approach this today in using the Jungian cognitive functions is it goes back to the origination point. The Myers-Briggs system was built off of Carl Jung's 8 cognitive functions. And then that was kind of captured during the 20th century as this testing model, this quiz, this assessment, if you will, to basically assess and get to your best fit type in a more disciplined way or a more organized way. But really, we can look at the cognitive functions and just tune ourselves to them and see which energies that show up in our lives. There's a different approach we can take today. So let's start with the sensing functions. We'll go to thinking, feeling, and then intuition. Let's look at all 8 and have a conversation free form here, Antonio. As people are looking at these functions, we'll tie them to the types that use them as strengths. And then we can start talking a little bit about how people might get mistyped here if they don't understand the entirety of what that function does or the nucleus of it.
Yeah, we might be going about it actually in kind of a complicated way, but I still think the conversation probably deserves to be presented in this way.
Yeah.
But the way that we're looking at.
okay, like she said, she's going to go about it in a complicated way. So for you people that, I get sometimes people trying to criticize me when I say things in a way that they maybe haven't heard. You know what I'm saying? But that's because y'all don't have a strong core understanding of certain things. Y'all watch a couple videos and like maybe you don't fully interpret on a deep level what the person was saying in the video. Because what I say is lining up with what they say too, but it may sound different because I'm looking at it and I'm able to describe it in my own words. When you're able to describe something in your own words, then you actually understand it. When you repeat information that you hear from other people, it doesn't mean that you understand it. It means that you memorized it. You know what I'm saying? Like y'all need to, some of y'all, I've come across comments, some of y'all don't understand that. Y'all just memorize information you have heard from other people, but y'all haven't actually delved into it and dissected it fully.
In a complicated ways, we're basically saying, if you have this function, if this is one of your preferred functions, your first 4 preferred functions, you might not identify with it, or it might be pointing arrows to other things without you realizing it. And so it's not so much that we're like, here's how extroverted sensing gets misinterpreted. It's like, if you use extroverted sensing, you might be mistyping or struggling to find that function inside of yourself because of the nature of the function itself, or at least our relationship to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's going to be kind of a complicated way of going about it, but I have a feeling that by the end of the episode, the tracks will be clearer.
Yeah, well, we're just trying to slice and dice this in a different way. So,
See, that's the difference between intuitives and sensors. The sensors, like, we're going to get to the point right away, but intuitive, they create all these Now it's great that they do this. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but they may go up and down and navigate. They bring up a lot of things so that they at the end of the conversation they can come to one big conclusion at the end. Slightly different way of approaching things than me as a sensor. Both of them, if you don't know, are intuitives. This guy here is an ENFP, and Antonio Dodge is a ENTP. So two NE-DOMs. So yeah.
So here we go. You just mentioned extroverted sensing.
Yeah, let's start there.
Sensation. That's the nickname we give it. Sensation, technically called extroverted sensing, used by all SPs in the Myers-Briggs system as a strength. So ESFPs, ESTPs, ISFPs, and ISTPs will use this as their primary way of perceiving their world, taking in information in their world. Mm-hmm. So let's get deeper into this. How can we approach this idea of having a misread or a mistype here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it should also be noted that NJs use it.
Yes, of course.
As a less preferred function.
This is to be an uncertain part of the NJ life.
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
And the rest of us have it in a shadow.
Correct. Yeah. So extroverted sensing is an interesting one because I think it suffers from it has a seemingly simple way or modality. And so it's never really described as complicated or nuanced or...
This is one thing I've been trying to tell y'all for the longest. The sensing functions, they always overly make all the sensing functions sound way more simple than they actually are. So it causes y'all sometimes to think that people are intuitive that are not intuitive. Like when I see y'all type certain celebrities or whatever, if the person has any type of nuance to them or they have any type of depth to them, you automatically assume they're intuitive because y'all think all the sensing functions are so simple and stuff like that because we don't get the in-depth descriptions anymore. It used to be like online community used to be a lot better. We used to have more in-depth descriptions for everybody and every function and every type. Now it's always just geared towards the intuitive side. They get the better descriptions, they get the better, more elaborate explanations, while the sensors don't really get anything. So this also goes into like how I communicate, my communication style. I take complicated information, I break it down in my head, and then I present it to everybody in a more simplified way, but it cuts right to the point, cuts through some of the fluff. Sometimes I get people thinking that because I did that it must mean that I don't understand it just because I didn't give a long, elaborate explanation. When it's actually the opposite. When you're giving a long, elaborate explanation sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes when you do that, it doesn't mean that you understand it. It means that you're just talking in circles. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of fluff sometimes. I'm not saying every single time, but that's just my communication style. I took all the information, internally dissected it in depth, and then I bring it out and I find a way to cut through all the unnecessary parts of it and then bring out the core of it. Y'all don't understand. Some of y'all don't get that. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes, like, when I simplify things and I talk about patterns, y'all confuse that. I don't know. Sometimes I even have people confuse it with me stereotyping. And I don't stereotype. Now, there's some truth in every stereotype. But I talk about patterns. That's what I talk about, patterns. That's the whole point of this whole thing. We're supposed to be spotting patterns, like, eventually, right? So something can be a common pattern. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean like, oh, every single person of this type does this specifically this way, but there's some truth in it. You know what I'm saying? So,
like it has its own layers. And I think because of that, there are a lot of people who have SP preferences, but they have typed themselves as something else, or they just nobody, you know, or they've just never given consideration to extroverted sensing being a preferred function.
Yeah.
I think because, you know, based on like what we talked about in the last episode, we discussed how intuition, in contrast to sensing, intuition is usually the function used to perceive patterns of personality and patterns of how people go about things, but it forgets to write itself in. And one of the beauties of cognitive functions, or Carl Jung's work with functions, is that he remembered to put intuition in. The challenge, of course, is that he's one of the only people who did that. And so there's not really a lot of great descriptions of intuition. And so we think of it as complicated. We think of intuition or describing intuition as something that's very difficult.
Yeah.
And in contrast, we don't think the sensing functions are as difficult or complicated. We see them as a little bit more straightforward and a little more simple. In fact, I've even done that in times past. But
it's not, it's like we're straightforward. That's like kind of the main difference. But just as much of like when you talk about all the stuff that goes into intuitive function analysis, like when you're actually using the intuitive function to do things, same amount of energy goes into sensing. You know what I'm saying? When we're using the sensing functions. I mean, I see it clear as day like that because I didn't come into it the wrong way, thinking like, I didn't come into it the way a lot of y'all came into it. I actually took time to learn about it on my own. I didn't go around asking everybody, hey, what do you guys think about this? Because then that's how rumors get and misinformation gets spread around. So
extroverted sensing is actually really layered and nuanced. And so is introverted sensing, by the way. And so because of that, not a lot of time is spent explaining it or describing it. And so if this is a preferred function of yours, language that would really hit, you know what I mean? Like really hit you as something that resonates or you really could identify with it. That might be something that hasn't happened because you've not run into a good description of it.
Exactly. That's why so many people would think, oh, I'm an INFJ or something or whatever. Because they'll take a lot of the strengths of sensors that are actually sensor strengths, and then they'll lie on the descriptions of intuitives and make it seem like that's the strength of intuitive, when it's not the case. Um, it's actually a sensor strength or an extroverted sensor strength. That happens all the time too. I've talked about that before though.
Well, and I would say in addition to that, it's really, of all the 8 functions, it's probably the least, it's like not the least use of describing, but it's the least descriptive. It's more experiential. Out of all, I mean, all of them are experiential. We do work in our personal life path and we go through the experience every week.
Very true. As an extroverted sensing in its purest form is very it can be nonverbal and action oriented. That's really like in its purest form. Now, of course, like you talking about an SE dom or something like that, they're extroverts. They have that tertiary extroverted function as well that they are coupled with. So ESTPs, they got the the FE, ESFPs got the TE. Now that can make them um, more like talkative, of course, like that, and things like that because they're just extroverts in general. But when you talk about just extroverted sensing, it's actually a very nonverbal, action-oriented function. Um, it can take things that an intuitive would sit and elaborate on for an entire hour, but an extroverted sensing can cut right to it in like 2 seconds just by looking at it and just like, you know, cutting right to it. So yeah,
Week of experiencing these, but this one is really experiential. Mm-hmm. It's not very articulate, right? The function itself, and here I think is the tough part is we don't have a lot of places in our world anymore that this naturally is available to us. We have to seek it out often. So there's these acute, organized expressions of it, like in sports or in performance, or
I've described extroverted sensing as the entertainment function. Because you want to talk about being entertainers, like it's the best function for that. You know what I'm saying? So in sports, if you guys don't know, sports is literally built for extroverted sensing. It's just the whole philosophy in every single sport. They always tell you in every sport you play is they make you focus on one play at a time. They're forcing you to focus on the play that you're doing right now. They like, because it's a disadvantage if you're thinking about other things while you're playing the sport, or if you're worried about other things while you're playing the sport, or if you're have too much anxiety and you're thinking about all the stuff you learn in practice, or it actually messes up how you play. But if you make it so that one play at a time, or you're focusing and immersing yourself fully in the moment, then it makes it a lot easier. Also, like I say, if you're getting tired or fatigued, if you take it as one play at a time, you'll get through the workout a lot better, or whatever, game a lot better. That's literally the mindset of extroverted sensing. It takes one thing at a time. Now the thing is, like, that's why we excel at sports typically. So yeah.
If I want to do something like drive a Formula One race car, I go and I sign up on a racetrack. Like, it's usually high octane, high adrenaline type activities, you know, that we talk about it around that. And often it's got those places. That's fine. You want to be a sports team, that's fine. But I always ask people in our first week of Personal Life Path Mentorship, I'm like, when was the last time you climbed a tree as an adult? You just went outside, you saw an opportunity just to climb up a tree, and you just started taking action, a direct action, and going up a tree. Or what in your life challenges you physically? Like, most of us, I use the example of going from like the downstairs in your house to the upstairs in your house. These steps are perfectly organized and paced. What if you replaced your steps in your house with
that's what I was going to say too. Also, on top of that, when you talk about, I can always tell when an extroverted sensor has played sports, because their extroverted sensing is like super obvious, because sports brings out your extroverted sensing. So if you already have extroverted sensing in one of your top 2 function stacks, it'll be a lot more obvious in you than like an extroverted sensor who maybe doesn't have a sports background. Now, we're inclined to be great at sports, we're inclined to be into sports, but not every single extroverted sensor is into sports. There's plenty of extroverted sensors I've met who never really got into sports for whatever reason. But yeah.
Pile of boulders you had to climb up every day. Well, that would activate this part of us, you're part of yourself, whether you have this preference or not in your personality.
Yeah.
That would be an example of like having it in your daily life. But we don't really have an expression of this outside of like sports, performance, going to the gym, something where we go to do extroverted sensing. We sign up.
You know what they used to say? Gym is like, it's kind of like a low level extroverted sensing. Believe it or not. I know some of y'all may sound weird, but it doesn't require a lot of extroverted sensing to go to the gym, because you're kind of focused on one thing at a time while you're in the gym. Now, you are using extroverted sensing because you're in your body and you're focused on your body part, whatever body part you're working on. But high level extroverted sensing activities, more like you're focused on your body, you're focused on the environment as well. So like working out and things like that, if for like an INFJ or INTJ, somebody like that, NI user, it's great for developing their extroverted sensing. You can tell when they have developed extroverted sensing because they'll be like going to the gym and stuff. NI users. So yeah.
For it.
Yeah. Well, and even what you're talking about is still something that activates it, but it doesn't necessarily describe it.
Correct.
To your point, it's not an articulate function, so it's hard to articulate it.
And what I'm trying to say is that experience doesn't make up for that.
Right.
We don't articulate it well. It's not articulate function. People, I don't think it's very well understood, but you wind your clock back 50 years, maybe people did understand it more because they were more required to be extroverted sensing.
Yeah, maybe 50 years. I'd say more like 5,000 years. Like there was a time in the past where extroverted sensing was your best friend and it kept you alive.
Absolutely.
And these days, to your point, we
know
put
what
it
else too? Extroverted sensing, you want to talk about being able to pick up skills. Extroverted sensing is the best at it. There's a reason why they called extroverted sensors the what did they used to nickname the artisans? That's what they were nicknamed. We was nicknaming Kearsley the artisans. We just pick up on skills extremely well and faster than other types. I've been saying this for the longest, but a lot of times you people with intuitive intuitive sensor biases and stuff, y'all don't like to admit that. Y'all don't like to admit that extroverted sensors are more talented than all the other types. We actually are. I'm talking about like as far as being able to pick up a bunch of different skills and be good at them. We try things out. Extroverted sensing is meant to try things out and be hands-on. So like we trying stuff out, we're gonna be good at a lot of things we try out. That's just what it is. Some of y'all don't like to admit that though. Some of y'all just like, oh, I can't say a sensor is better than me or something. I have to be better than the sensor. Yeah, so that's how a lot of y'all think.
Too.
Yeah, well, we cage it and put it behind fences, and we're so focused on safety that we tend to not give people freedom of expression when it comes to this part of ourselves.
Yeah, they can't take direct action.
Yeah, I've always felt like that growing up, man. In school and stuff, I always felt like it was really hard for me to express my extroverted sensing side because like all these parameters and like only time I could really express was when I played a sport, really, or if I was playing outside or something like that. Some ways I was misunderstood as a. I know it sounds crazy. I know intuitive. Y'all think y'all are the most misunderstood people on the planet. But I'm gonna tell you right now, as an extroverted sensor, that part of me was always misunderstood. You know what I'm saying? Mainly because I'm a kind of a hybrid. Like I'm not really a super like I guess I am kind of a jockish type of guy in a way, but on the other hand, I'm also highly intellectual. So most of the time, people don't expect people that are into sports to be super intellectual and have a nerdy side to them. So like the contrast is what threw people off, really.
Typically.
Right, exactly. And so then what if I'm going to assert that we are not great at describing it or explaining it and that a bunch of people do misreads then?
You say me and you aren't good at describing it, or generally people aren't good at describing it?
Well, I just made that accusation.
Oh, okay.
And so if I'm going to make that accusation, then I'm going to have to come through and try to do a better job here.
Yeah.
And so this is how I think extroverted sensing gets mistaken for something else. So the function itself is sensing. And the easiest way to understand sensing, even though this is an oversimplification, but this is like a 1 hour episode. So if you really want to get into the guts of everything, then we have programs that really go deep, super deep into each function and like spend a lot of time defining it and finding the nucleus of it and all that stuff.
We might have to make this a two-parter.
We might. It might end up being a two-parter. I can already feel like it's going to be a two-parter. But
when you're actually describing things well in Myers-Briggs, it's going to be long-winded because like these little like when people try to overly like I know I said I simplify things in my videos for the sake of the video, but like sometimes I'm gonna say sometimes because not every single case, but sometimes when people try to make it so that when it's overly like to the point to where very face surface level. I mean, like surface level sort of ways. You're not going to get the whole thing from that. You know what I'm saying? You have to delve deeper if you want a full understanding of it. You're going to get bits and pieces along the way. You know what I'm saying? Um, Now, as far as me cutting it down and making it shorter in a way, I'm cutting more to the core of it because I have a deep understanding of it. But when you talk about somebody who maybe doesn't have a deep understanding of it, that may make an article or video, or like it can seem like they do, but they don't, type of thing. They're not giving you the raw information that as well. I'm going to say that right now. I just didn't want to sound like a hypocrite because I know I just said that earlier, but I didn't mean it in that way. So yeah,
there's a sensing. One of the ways to see sensing at its sort of core is to understand the concept of experience. Like the sensing, all of our senses, they are attuned to information that our body and our minds, by sort of trailing along, feel like it's important for us to attune to those.
And the way that she got to the core of it like that, that's introverted thinking. Introverted thinking kind of goes through and cuts out all the stuff and then gets to the core of things. Definitely introverted thinker, Antonio Dodge.
For whatever reason. And so experience does a couple different things for us. It can help us build on experiences. And so then we end up becoming maybe more skilled at something or have institutional knowledge or whatever, which tends to be a little bit more of an introverted sensing way of going about it. Or it reminds us constantly and perpetually that we are alive. And that might be its number one purpose, is to remind us that we are alive. So anything that attunes to this idea of aliveness is attuned to.
It seems very simple. It seems like such a simple thing. But what she means by that is the feeling of aliveness, but we're talking about to an extreme level. I'm not talking about just like, oh, I'm alive. She's talking about to an extreme extent, all the way to that side of the spectrum. Probably past what some of y'all intuitives can imagine. You know what I'm saying? Because y'all probably thinking about it like, oh, alive? Oh, of course. Everybody does that. We're talking about in a way that is on an extreme level. Like all the stuff about sensing is about being on the extreme side of the spectrum, not just the basic common sense. Because some of it they make it sound like, oh, everybody does that. No, we talk about on the extreme side of the spectrum of aliveness. Hence, what she was talking about, the adrenaline stuff that people do that are extroverted senses. Now, not every extroverted sensor necessarily does adrenaline stuff because some extroverted sensors are looking at it like, okay, I've been there and done some adrenaline things, and they probably see how it plans out, and they may have a better understanding of how it pans out and whether or not it's worth it than maybe other people even. That happens too, but like that stuff like that lines up with extroverted sensor when at its core at the end of the day. That doesn't mean every extroverted sensor is going to be out here doing outrageous stuff, but it does mean we understand it. We can understand either we understand it on a deep level because we've done it enough times, and we like, okay, I know that's not worth it. I bumped my head on that a few times. That's actually a sign of extroverted sensors developing introverted intuition, because introverted intuition, you start to realize the pattern of things that you've done before, and then you start to learn your lesson a lot better. Like SE DOMs that are not don't have the extrovert intuition developed, they tend to make the same mistakes over and over and over, and they're like really hard headed basically. Basically, they're just super hard headed people, and they never learn. Like even if they keep getting in trouble, they won't learn. Like that's pretty much how it will pan out.
The extroverted sensing or sensation channel. The only way we don't have extroverted sensing experiences is if we're dead. So extroverted sensing goes, we're alive, we're having an experience. You can know that by attuning to the present moment. You're not in your head in an abstraction or a simulation. You're not doing that thing where it's like, you know, when people go, what if it's all just a simulation and we're all just projected, you know, like we're non-player characters or whatever. It's like, and what if we're all just...
She's not saying that extroverted sensors are not capable of doing that, but when they're doing that, they're not using their extroverted sensor necessarily. They might be just they might be just playing around with the NI or something like that. If they are doing that, that doesn't mean automatically, oh, he's not an extroverted sensor because he's asking, are we in a simulation? See, like sometimes people hear things like that and they look at it just surface level. He's talking about, yeah, I'm just elaborating just in case y'all looking like, yeah.
You know, like the shared consciousness and some plasma in the universe. These are not extroverted sensing ideas. Okay. Yeah. Extroverted sensing is like, no, I'm sitting in a chair talking to a microphone right now. That's actually the experience I'm having. And that's how I know I'm alive, is because I'm doing things that unalive.
Extroverted sensing is like, definitely like, I don't care about all that might happen, or we don't know for sure about all that, but all I know is right now, this is what I'm doing, and this is the information that I have right now that I know for sure. That's what extroverted sensing does, for the most part.
Person would do. And in fact, the more I'm alive, the more I'm attuned to this function. And so I'm going to start seeking aliveness. I'm going to not just be alive. I'm going to like feel alive. I'm going to seek aliveness. I'm going to follow where life is telegraphing that it's at its most whatever. So it could be at its most intense, which is why extroverted sensing or sensation gets this, reputation for adrenaline. Or it could simply be, I'm feeling present and in the moment. And the moment is all we really have. So I'm alive. I'm alive right now. I'm having an experience right now. I am feeling my feet on the sand on the beach, or I am hearing the bird song in the forest, or I am making love to a person who's important to me, who I like,
That's why we be stuck on stuff like that pretty much. That's why we very nature oriented people tend to be very nature oriented. We can be very nature oriented. And anything that makes us that helps us immerse us in the moment, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm talking about extroverted senses immerse in the moment to a whole nother level than other types. We can immerse ourselves in what we are doing, like super hyper focus on what we're doing very, very intensely. That's part of the reason why we be good at a lot of things, because we might take in more data from what we're doing, and which causes us to learn how to do it faster. You know what I'm saying? Where we might gather more data points faster than someone else who's not an extroverted sensor in a short amount of time. which causes us to understand, like not intellectually understand, but like as far as doing the actual thing, being able to pick it up faster, if that makes sense.
Bonded with, or I'm playing with my child with toys, or I'm driving fast in my car, or
Yeah, all these things she's saying, we're not thinking like in our heads, oh, this is what I'm doing. We're just doing it. Now we might have a thought saying, okay, I'm driving a car right now. I'm not saying we don't, but it's not necessarily, that's not, she's describing she's describing the function. She's not, um, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what it's so, it's actually very hard to describe because it's so like in its moment that it's just hard to describe. When you're talking about being fully in the moment, there's no words that describes it. Words are things that humans have created to describe things. Um, before words, let's say before words were created, we just gonna look at that thing and that's that thing right there. We're not gonna have a name for it. We just looking at it and we just do what we do with it.
I'm hyper vigilant because I don't want to wreck my car and I don't want to unalive myself, right? It's like it's really, if you think about it, it's a function that's seeking life all the time and a reinforcement of that feeling of aliveness. And it does it in a non-articulate way.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
not in a non-expressed way. So when we talk about the body being an instrument for extroverted sensing or sensation, what it is it's an instrument of expressing aliveness and all the different possibilities of having a body and being alive and all the things that we're able to do. So if
And that's why, like me, as far as sports, one of the reasons why I love sports so much is because I want to see what my body can do. That's why I tell people, like I want to see how far my body can go, what my body can do. Like a lot of that came from when I was like doing a lot of vertical jump training. And it's not even, I wasn't even doing like all, like I pretty much know all the muscles in the body that has to do with vertical jump, but like, it's not that I was doing everything perfectly correct. I kind of was like doing like, I focus a lot on the weightlifting aspect of it and like get my legs stronger and like different body parts stronger. Um, but yeah, I really was just trying to see how far my body could go and like push my body to the limit, because there's no other outlet for that. Like you walking around, you can't push your body to the limit. And like most things you're doing, it's not like we living in the wild anymore. Like there's not a lot of challenges to where we had to push ourselves, exert ourselves fully. So like sports and working out was always a great outlet for me personally. Um, I be having a lot of energy deep down. Like people maybe can't tell by looking at me, but yeah, I do.
the function is focused on aliveness and experience and expressions of aliveness and expressions of experience, there's kind of no limitation to that.
Yeah.
There's dance and there's performance and there's theater and there's art and and there's like being in a concert, not even the person on stage playing it, but there's
Yeah, you notice how she's describing all these things like extroverted sensors are naturally talented, the most talented, like multi-talented. I'm talking about like being multi-talented, like extroverted sensor. Now, I'll tell you this. You want to talk about like versus multi-talented versus being a polymath. That's two different things, slightly different things. Any DOMs with polymaths, like ENTPs, ENFPs, you can say they're polymaths. Really, any users are more like polymaths. But like being multi-talented is more like an extroverted sensor thing. Two could overlap, but they're two very similar things. But like as far as like type from any users to S users, they can overlap a little bit. But yeah, for the most part.
in the concert and like watching your favorite band and like doing the devil horns and going like woo, right? Like there's that's involved in it, but there's also beautiful moments of like laying in bed looking at your beloved and like touching their face and just being with them, but you know what I mean,
or noticing a stream,
or noticing
watching the water and listening to the sounds of a waterfall.
Exactly.
That.
Yeah. There's like all of these different things that tell us that we're alive. And
I notice with NI users, sometimes they miss the moments, the great moments like that. And then I have to remind them, like introvert intuitives, I know. That's part of the reason probably why introvert intuitives may like being around me and that type of stuff, because I kind of remind them of the moments, those small moments that are like great. You know what I'm saying? So interesting.
Depending upon the individual that's using it, they're going to be attuned to different aspects of aliveness based on them as a person, not on the function. The function
Yeah.
just attunes you to aliveness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You as an individual get attuned to your
And I
favorite.
always make these distinctions too. I've said similar things. Like I always tell people like it's different from like you as an individual versus your type. You know what I'm saying? Your type is going to be tailored to you as an individual. So that's where the difference is coming like from person to person. I'll be trying to tell people this type of stuff all the time. This is why it's so great to hear Personality Hacker because they say a lot of things I've been trying to tell people for the longest. People just don't like, oh, you know, they skeptical. But you see Personality Hacker, they say all the same things I say, and they are legit. They've been doing it longer than me. They're well established. I've been doing it for a long time myself, and they've been doing it much longer than me. They might have been doing it since maybe even the 90s or something. I don't remember exactly how long, but I know it's longer than I've been doing it, for sure. So
flavors of it. And I realized, you know, you and I, we went skydiving a couple of years ago. And the people that we tell that to who are the most impressed and also the most likely to say, I would never do that, weirdly enough, are the SP types, the ESPs. I've had multiple ESPs be like, you did? And first of all, I immediately got cred. But the second thing was I could never do that.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I've gotten that too from SC Doms. Because you would think they'd be the people, but they know they've done all that already. I think they've done so many things like that already. By the time they mature, they're like, in a way, they kind of like, they already kind of just so familiar with those type of things and they understand the risk of it and stuff like that very well. Because they've already risked themselves a lot in life. Now, they probably had to bump their head a ton of times before they come to the conclusion, like, maybe not worth it. But yeah, that's because they extrovert sense and doms. So, like, they're going to learn faster.
but wouldn't you want to? Wouldn't you want to feel that sense of aliveness? And it's like, well, there's also a fear of unaliving yourself associated with it, right?
Yeah.
Like the fear of like, oh, I'm actually going to jump to my death. And then I've noticed that the people who have ESP preferences that do go skydiving and break the seal, they're the ones that are now doing it like every month. Like they get the, you know, they get the, I don't know, the freaking flyer card. Yeah, they get the coupon card. Exactly. So listening to that idea of aliveness, which has so much variety to it.
It's like we should have a high capacity for sensory data. Extroverted sensor has the highest capacity for sensory data. Like even if you got like a chill extroverted sensor, most of the time like SFPs, especially like SFPs have a more chill demeanor to them as extroverted sensors than STPs are a little more intense. Well, I say ESTPs are more intense. I have that intensity in me too, but it's not like you looking at me, you tell I'm intense like that all the time. Even like the SFPs, they're so relaxed, but like anything that comes their way sensory wise, they can adapt to it like that. It's so easy for them to just switch gears and go with it. To a point you probably be surprised. I'll tell you that right now. If you think they just like, oh, just let super relaxed and just smooth, and no, they can adapt on a dime. It's insane, actually. Very impressive.
But the one thing it is it, as Piper says, our little ESFP, well, she's always saying, it's not that deep, Dad.
Yeah.
Right. She's always going like, it's really not that complicated. It's not that deep. So the one thing that it also has to have in order to feel aliveness and experience and rapport with the moment is it also has to kind of, to some extent, take some things for granted. It has to just sort of assume, yeah, no, this is all reality and I'm not in a simulation.
Yeah. Earlier you used the word simple. And I think I would like to replace that, if you're okay with it, replace that word with direct.
Correct.
I don't think extroverted sensing or SPs are simple people. Like they don't just like it has a complexity to it, but it has a very much a direct action element. So it's very direct action, very direct experience. Why make things 5 steps when I can just take that 1 step to do it?
Exactly. That's exactly how I think as extroverted sensor. Like when I'm explaining things, that's why I explain things the way I do. A lot of times I'll be like, man, why would I say all that if I can really just say this? And that encapsulates everything I want to say. Now, yeah, sometimes I'm not even like trying to bash intuitives about that, but like I know some intuitives, The ones that are not like very secure within themselves, they try to overdo the elaborate explanation to overcompensate for their lack of understanding. That goes to some of the intuitive types that are in my comments too. Like, not all of y'all, of course. I know that's naturally how y'all operate. So a healthy intuitive type, you're not gonna fall under that criteria. But the ones that are insecure with themselves and they just want to talk to sound smart, talking to you.
So it's very direct, and it seems like it's overly simplified sometimes when people use this function and they're tuned into it. But I think it's got a lot of nuance and complexity. It seems simple, but I think it actually is the direct part is what makes it seem that simple.
Yeah.
And it's always attached to introverted intuition or perspectives, right?
Yes.
So that's the other side of it. The other side of the polarity. You don't just have that function.
Funny because I discovered function axes on my own. I made a video on it a long time ago. I don't know if I even, I did. I think I made a video on it, but I discovered that on my own, and it all lined up with when I went and actually researched and read about it. It was already like I just went off of like just the nature of the cognitive functions, and I just had a like aha moment. I was like, function axes, huh? So I noticed all these axes on my own. Like, wow, a lot of y'all probably would have had to read about it to figure it out. But I went and verified what I discovered because it already had been discovered before me. So I was 100% correct. But that's just comes from understanding the fundamentals, the core fundamentals. You know what I'm saying?
It's on a polarity relationship with introverted intuition or perspectives, as mentioned.
Yeah, I did say we're going to do thinking next, but we maybe want to stay with the perceiving function so we could flip the polarity and talk about that side once we're done with SE.
I agree.
Extrovert sensing.
And so intuition sends us messages from both our conscious and our unconscious. It sends us messages that are frequently presented in images and in visualizations. And that function replicates reality inside of its mind through a simulation. And so because of that, it feels like extroverted sensing, but inside. And so when extroverted...
You know what I can see that? Often see that because if you got an NI user who's not mature or as developed all around, they'll look at things that extroverted sensors do and think they can do it. Like, well, not even just extroverted sensors, like people do, like maybe somebody who's practiced and there's a master at something, they'll look at it and think, oh, that's not that hard. All you got to do is X, Y, Z. I've talked to some that are like that, and I'll be like, bro, have you ever done it yourself? Like, not like always in a mean way, but sometimes I'll be like, bro, if you try that, it's not going to be as easy as you think. Like, when you actually try it, it's different. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know because I got that tertiary NI right next to my extroverted sensing. So it's like, it's a difference between looking at somebody doing something versus actually doing it. My thing was with sports, I didn't watch certain sports as much until I actually did the sports myself. And then I go watch a highlight from somebody doing the same sport professionally, and I'll be like amazed. That's where it comes from. Like, all right, y'all. So that's all I got for today. I ran out of space on my computer, so I need to go free up some space on my computer. But that's all I'm gonna do for right now. Maybe I'll do a part 2 later, but I think I got most of the good stuff out of that. But that entire video is a pretty solid one. I'll tell you that. All that content is good, man. That's the real stuff that y'all sometimes maybe don't want to watch because it's not gonna tell you exactly what you want to hear. But it's the actual truth of like, well, how Myers-Briggs actually works and the cognitive functions, how they work, and all that. Personality Hackers is probably the best channel on YouTube, but they don't get enough credit, in my opinion. All these channels that are just, oh, every video is an INFJ video, are ones that get all the views. But yeah. Anyways, thanks for watching.